Hi, Erin. I just want to ask you a question. So I was discussing with my group, and then for the wrap up now is the reporting back. Are we expecting one of them to speak about the discussion, right?
Yeah, that would be great. And if you want to do it together with you and someone from your group, that works too. I think the idea is to get to the key, the core of the discussion, and also if there's any really interesting specific examples that came up, to bring those in as well.
Okay.
So we'll just verbally describe, and then someone else is putting this into Jamboard or whatever it is we decided. I guess it's a template, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Tamara, David, let us know, or someone in the room, let us know when you guys are ready.
We're ready.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that the in-person people could hear us and they're prepared.
Okay. Yeah.
Zoom audio to the room audio.
Oh,
Okay.
there we go.
Can someone on Zoom please talk so we can see if your audio is working?
Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay, great. Wow. This hybrid AV is going pretty well so far. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
Oh, Tamara, we can't hear you anymore. Are you introducing this?
What about now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. For the disembodied voices, those are our people online. Awesome. Cool. So the way we're going to report back is I'm going to document things on this screen over here, and we're going to go in order of the groups in this cell. So we'll start with group 1, which was Mariana's group. Either someone from your group or you could maybe read out some of the key insights. You can just talk at me. Oh, you want to go to your table? Cool. Let me know. All right, so starting off with personal experience, our participants had.
Mariana's pretty faint.
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah. It was very different geographical locations, for example. So one of them was from the US, another one was from Italy working in the Netherlands, and the other one was taking a vacation in New Zealand, but was from Munich. So some people had a bit more of a warning towards what was coming directly from Italy. Other people, it kind of saw it gather up internationally, and then it kind of hit all of a sudden. And then in regards to how they were able to conform to ICTs and this new switch, well, a lot of people use Zoom, others used WhatsApp and Teams. And it was kind of hard, especially in a teaching environment for some, because there was no feedback for experiences. Yeah, so for teaching, there was no engagement. It was okay for theoretical and more verbal work. It wasn't very good in other spaces. And there was a lot of technological
issues regarding work. So a lot of people didn't have good enough Wi-Fi, and it's problems that we still struggle with to this day, as seen in some issues within the meeting itself even, or getting used to using a VPN. And yeah, some people found things like pre-recorded lectures as an affordance because you can kind of manage your own work times. Others might find pre-recorded lectures as disengaging and therefore not an affordance. And yeah.
Sorry about that little delay. We had technical issues. But thank you for sharing group one. Our online group one, which the key facilitator was Anna. Do you mind, you or your representative from your group, sharing some of the key insights?
So yeah, our group was very short. We had a couple persons. There was one person that I think she was on the online writing, but she wasn't on the call. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, so the people we spoke, that was someone that was from Argentina and someone that was an immigrant from China. She was living, I forgot if it was in the US. I forgot now. Anyway, but it was situations of one person was finishing her bachelor's in the middle of pandemic and had to do defense online and everything. And other person was doing research, and for her, it was particularly like a positive to have to work online because of the population she was working on. But at the same time, she had family that were living in a place that COVID was worse. So there was a lot of emotional distress on having to contact family, and reflecting with we reflected a lot about those personal aspects, and then using different ICT tools, for instance, connecting with your family and working, or going attending online learning when needed. And this lack of experience of, like, for instance, the person that was finishing a course, she was expecting to have some sort of celebration to make her defense, and she had to do it all at once online and have to prepare this in a lot short after the lockdown happened. And also there are some differences between some lockdowns being more restricted than others, and the internet connection. It was another issue that everybody mentioned, and adjusting life and to the new schedule and the new events.
Thank you for sharing, Anna. We'll go into our online group 2. Peter, you were the key facilitator. Do you mind sharing some of the key points?
Yeah. Yes, I can. Also, who's supposed to be putting these into the template because they're not appearing?
They're updating
weird.
on my end.
Oh, okay, they're not on. Maybe it's the screen's just frozen again. Okay, so I think the screen's frozen again. So I see a tiny little window. Not a big deal. Okay. All right. So yeah, I met with Logan. I had one participant. We had a great conversation, and so we'll sort of I'll present like an overview, and then Logan can correct me where I got it wrong and add in where I've missed stuff. So there's sort of many parts of what we talked about, and there's sort of like two main areas. So he works at an educational technology company, and so we're going to talk about the workplace and also the experience of their customers, which are like teachers and students, right? So and also there's several parts of each of these because his company was acquired during this. So in terms of the workplace, Logan, his background's he's in cognitive science, he's been working in educational technology for a while, and it's a West Coast based company, like scientific educational technology, acquired by a Pittsburgh-based company. Okay, and what was great is he was able to just stay in California, and the Pittsburgh company actually acquired many companies, and so they now have like an international workforce. And so because pre-pandemic they already had like hybrid working practices, a lot of things actually became easier, he described. Okay, so like that experience of the remote person being left out like went away. And actually this was sort of my experience too, because the inclusive design program had an online option that got easier during the pandemic. Okay, and so turn taking, which was sort of hard, when you had like remote people and some people in person, like a lot of that like practices emerged. Okay. So there was like a lot of positives that he talked about, but in a moment we're going to get to some negatives, okay, or maybe affordances that had both positives and negatives. But we also quickly shifted to talking about customer experience, and there's some revealing insights from the first company he was at, and then the company that acquired them. So they initially thought there'd be a big uptick in the use of their educational software because of the pandemic. And that didn't happen with the first company. It did happen with the second company. So Logan's sort of working hunch was the second company had more effectively modeled like the classroom environment and how teachers use materials, okay, like providing a teacher's guide and other stuff. And so the hunch is that in the same way, so when they came up with their own adaptations, or when a school district came up with their online workaround during the storming phase, the Pittsburgh company stuff just inherited that, and because it fit the teacher's working model. So in the same way they would have pre-pandemic, they would have used geology curriculum and had some PowerPoints in a book. With this new software, they just kept using it through whatever technique they came up with. Okay. Now there's an additional feature that also could explain the success and the uptake with the new company, and that is that the software for the new company, it actually provided feedback to the teacher on the student's performance. So if you think about within the context of shared intentionality, this is an important feedback loop. Like that's the vertical axis in the model Aaron showed, the conceptual model, right? And so like there's lots of cues in a physical environment that a teacher has to see if a student's falling behind or not getting it or something, body language, and then other assessments. But this was sort of provided by the software. And so this could also explain like the uptake. Now, then after that, we looped back to, but they did experience difficulties with like a lot, and I think this is more associated with the first company, but Logan can clarify, but like students had a lot of technology access issues, right? So a lot of the benefits that they experienced at work weren't necessarily experienced by all of the students. There was like computer use, and a lot of the software was like embedded in these classroom labs. And with the first company, there was a reluctance to like have students do it at home, or they didn't have the capability to do it at home. The final piece was Logan talked about sort of how it seemed that with the online thing, like with things sort of being more official, like it did encourage diversity. Okay, and so this is sort of the pros and cons of a click. Like this sort of reduced being there being an in crowd and out crowd. And this is my interpretation, so Logan can clarify. So it's like when there's an in crowd, like you get shortcuts. Like there's this like the way it is when there's like there's actually shared intentionality in an in group that the out group doesn't get. So there was like less sort of clustering like that, but that afforded like more diversity. I think so Logan, maybe correct and clarify stuff I left out or stuff I got wrong. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think you did a great summary. You're a fabulous listener. So yeah, just to maybe elaborate on that last point a little bit. So because our company was acquired during the pandemic, and then as some other companies had already been acquired, and then they went on to acquire a few more, we now have a fairly large, more than 600 people. Lots of these groups of people have never interacted in person. We've only communicated by Zoom or by writing, and so I think there's pros and cons to that. The cons are that it just gets sometimes you really feel like you don't know what's going on, because you're not overhearing things at the water cooler, and you're not seeing people across the room doing this or that. You don't get that like excitement of like, oh yeah, we're all working on this thing, and all that. So kind of the social facilitation of being in a room with somebody. But I think there are some pros in terms of when we're on a Zoom call, we're all sort of equal. We've all got our same little box, and there's nobody like winking and nudging at somebody across the room having a side conversation. And so I think from the perspective of encouraging diversity in workers and ideas that get put across, and maybe even in, you know, being willing to say something that, yeah, is disagree, you know, or take different positions. You know, it just makes it a little bit easier, because there isn't that sense of like, oh, we all want to get along here and be part of a nice little group. But yeah, there is the other thing that just kind of came into my head during that conversation. You know, the whole issue of like students having access and you know, bandwidth and equipment and all of that. That's something we've had to deal with forever, and because I've always been in the educational software space. It you know, became really acute during the pandemic, and it creates these kind of design conflicts where sometimes we know that the best way to communicate an idea, the simplest, quickest, you know, most sort of motivating way would be, we'll put a little video in there that's got these great graphics and sound effects and all of that. You know, every time we had something like that, it creates bandwidth issues. So then it's like, oh, we did this great thing that's going to make it much more appealing and engaging. And now, you know, 10% of the kids are getting stuck there because they can't load that part of the software. So, you know, that's just thought I'd mention that, because it's this real frustration point for those of us in, you know, trying to make good educational software, that often school districts and then, you know, home users have really poor IT infrastructure. So anyway, that's it for me.
It sounds like you guys had a
great.
great
Thanks.
conversation.
That was
Thank
great.
you so much for sharing. In the essence of time, I'm going to quickly share some of the ones from phase 3, which was post-storming. And Zainab, if you could plug in some of your insights to the sheet as well, we can make it available for participants to see during the break and still keep to our time. So in the post-storming phase, some of the key insights were that socializing was more challenging online, but also work could be done online. A lot of people were struggling with hybrid, having never met some people balancing multiple platforms, or one group being left out versus the other being more engaged, whether it was online or the in-person people. And in terms of the role of ICTs, informal conversation platforms through Slack, there was a lot more assigned peer one-on-one coffees or Gather Town in VR. A few things were made easier, like brainstorming with collaboration tools, like whiteboards. From my group, we also talked about spontaneous interaction and what it allows in terms of mingling, idea generation, and organic engagement. And also about adapting content or experiences to fit the technology and embrace it, rather than translating in-person experiences into a format that may not have those affordances. So due to time, we'll wrap up there, but thank you everyone for sharing. Are we taking a break now? Yes. Okay, awesome. We are taking a 10-minute break now, and then we'll go into the next presentation.
Presentation starting at 2:40.
At 2:40, so it's 2:31 here. We'll come back at 2:40.